Okay, when your group comes in to work with the skulls, you will see there are 2 at each table. You'll have 3 people at your table, maybe 2, depending on your group. One of you can write on your data table, and the other 1 or 2 can do the measurements. So what you'll want to do is not have any pen or pencil in your hand when you're handling these skulls. These are actual, well, they're acrylic, but they're faithful reproductions of the fossils that were found. So I'm looking right here at gorilla. This is a female gorilla. I can tell because her canines are not incredibly large like a male's would be. And this is Neanderthal, the famous caveman. And if you forget who's who, they are labeled. So most of them are labeled on the side. Neanderthal's on the back, gorilla's on the back, and the other ones, just look on the side if you don't see it on the back. So I'm going to quickly go through, there are 11 things we'd like you to look at and compare. And so you're going to be doing all 6 skulls. When one group is done, maybe be patient. Another group might take a minute to finish up. You need to either carefully pass the skulls in one direction or get up and move. You don't hand off across because then one group is gonna not have anything to work with. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you're doing, so this is gorilla and Neanderthal. It's the first and second column on your data. When you are looking at number 1, I want you to look at number 1 on the gorilla compared to the first thing on Neanderthal. So you don't do all of one and then all of the other. You need to compare back and forth because you're looking at relative sizes and comparing characteristics. So let's get started. So number 1, width of the brain case. These are calipers. They're for measuring things that are round. And so on the gorilla, you'll notice that there's a flare. Well, imagine where the brain is. It's not out in this bone. So you're measuring the brain case here. When you're using the caliper, put it on each side. And if you hang on to the top really tight, it might seem like it bounces, but it will come back and stay where you put it. Then take your ruler, make sure you're looking at the centimeter side, and read the width of the brain case. Now, one thing to keep in mind is do that on the gorilla, have the other person, or if you're the only one, do it on your other skull. Then it's length of brain case. Okay, imagine where your brain is. It comes up right behind your eyes here. And so on the gorilla, it's here to here, which is a little awkward with your calipers. Just squeeze the top and it'll bounce back when you move it, right? For your Neanderthal, think bridge of the nose to the back of the cranium, right? And the directions are given to you, right? So if you don't understand what it says, you'll have this video. That's why we're making it, okay? So we've got length of brain case, height of brain case. So the height from the top to where the spine would come in. Okay, so then number 4 says to measure the indentation behind the eye sockets. That's where your temples are, right? So you're gonna have to put the calipers here, and remember to squeeze the top. It might kind of bounce as you pull it off, but it'll bounce back. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, right behind the eye sockets, for Neanderthal, right behind the eye sockets. And then it says, number 5 is sagittal crest, Y or N. Yes or no, does it have one or doesn't it? A sagittal crest, you probably, if you have a dog, have noticed they have kind of a little bump on the top of their head where jaw muscles attach. So gorilla, yes, you can see there's a sagittal crest, right? It's got a ridge of bone. Neanderthal, no. This is not a sagittal crest. You have one of these. It's a fontanelle. It's when you're born, it's real soft and then the bones knit. That's not a crest. Smooth. Okay, so no. And then facial prognathism. So that's kind of like snout. Does it have a snout? Does the nose and mouth stick out in front of the eyes? It says, wait a minute, did I miss one? Oh, I skipped one. Foramen magnum, which is super important. So the foramen magnum, the easiest way to look at it is it's the hole where your spine goes in. So if you put your fingers there or you use a ruler to put it in, you'll notice that the gorilla's comes out at an angle. Neanderthal, right underneath, if you could put your fingers in, it's got like a block here, but it's straight up and down. Okay, so underneath or out the back is what you're looking for. And facial prognathism is number 7. So does the face below the eyes stick out in front of the forehead? So if you look at your gorilla, this is the best one to check if you're kind of confused. Just put your hand or a ruler there. Does the face stick out? What do you think? And then Neanderthal, do the same thing. Does the face stick out? What do you think, right? So kind of relative amount. You can adjust that after you look at all of them too. Then it says carefully remove the mandible. So all this time you've been able to pick up your skull, well, the skull, and you can hold it like it's walking along and the jaw stays on. There are springs here that won't spring back. Do not pull on the jaw. If you do, you've ruined it. It needs to go in the shop and you can pay for the repairs. So to remove it, you'll notice that there's little pegs. You just take the spring off the pegs. And then if you hold it in your hand and you kind of pull out with your thumbs, this one's a little stiff, hasn't been used in a while. You'll notice that there are pegs that go in holes here and you can just remove the lower jaw. What happens, this one has had the springs damaged, so I took them off. This is an orangutan, and we can't handle it without it coming apart. We don't want that for these 6 skulls in particular. So please do not think it's funny to pretend like they talk or something. It's not, it's expensive. So we take these off, I'll just do the gorilla, and it says dental arcade shape, U or V. So we're looking at, look at the jaw. If I lay my fingers along the molars, you'll notice that a U would form. They don't flare out, they're straight-sided. That's U-shaped. Right? Let me show you with Neanderthal. Kind of doing this all for this one table, I guess.
Well, you're just taking it apart. We're not, we're not.
Right. So here, if you lay your fingers on the molars, you'll notice what happens. Okay, is that a U shape or a V shape? That's what you're deciding. The dental formula is a bit tricky. You have to know what your teeth are. So here it says, count the number of incisors, canines, premolars, and molars in 1/2 of the mandible. And I drew a little picture here. So your incisors are what you bite apples with. Canines are these pointy things. And then you have a couple of premolars. They're sharp on one side and flat on your tongue side. And then you have molars that are flat on both your cheek and your tongue side. That's how you tell them apart. So you need to count, and you're only looking at half. So if you cover up half of the jaw with a ruler or your hand, then how many incisors, how many canines, how many premolars, how many molars? And you write it like that. Oh, there's 5 of these and 4 of those. And so you just write like 4-5- whatever it is. Yeah? And then canine diastema is number 10. A diastema is a space. And so what you're asked for, do they have a space for the canines to fit bottom to top? Right? And that's a yes or no. And then upper canine length, take your centimeter ruler. The upper canine, you want to measure in centimeters. And how long is it? Okay, so that in a nutshell. Once you do the first 2, then you kind of get the hang of it and it goes kind of quickly. But don't dilly-dally. Make sure you're not horsing around and that you try to take accurate measurements. At least do it the same way on each skull.
Put them
When you're finished, then you want to put these back together. So these little pegs go in. You can see that there's little holes. So I'm going to gently put them in. They're a little stiff. There we go. And then Neanderthal just has one spring. Just attach it, and voila, he can walk around with his jaw attached. And same thing then for any of them that you use. Just please kind of be careful with those. If you need help, ask your teacher for some help on taking these off. And this video will be available in the module.